Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at how social media can be used to learn English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which
That-
is kind of,
That's pretty cool.
it's really cool, and unexpected, right?
Yeah.
You would think that it's just a distraction, but
It is a distraction.
yeah,
as I
but it's
say.
really cool to think that you can use it to learn English. And we've got some information here from two ESL instructors,
Hmm.
Sam and Akirke,
Hmm.
who've actually done just that.
Interesting.
They use social media as a tool for teaching.
So they kind of flip the script.
Yeah.
Instead of it being a distraction from learning, they're making it a tool for learning,
Yeah, exactly.
which is really cool.
It's really neat. And they have this live podcast that they've created.
Oh, wow.
That's like a virtual English-speaking club.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for anyone out there who's looking for a way
A
to,
good way
yeah,
to prove.
to improve their English skills,
Yeah.
this is it.
I could see how that would be really helpful.
And I think one of the things that's really neat about what they've done is they have these 25 conversation questions all about social media that they use.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
That they use to help people practice
Casey.
English.
So they get to have these authentic conversations with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
So I'm really interested to see like what kinds of questions they came up with.
What are some of the questions?
Yeah.
Did they give any examples?
Yeah, so one that really stood out to me was how has social media changed the way you communicate?
Oh, that's a good one.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It really gets you thinking about like how we communicate differently online
For sure.
than we do in person.
Absolutely.
So I think that would spark some interesting discussion.
Yeah, I think so too.
And another one that they had was, do you think social media can impact mental health?
Ooh, that's a really important topic.
And how?
Yeah,
So
that's a big one.
it's a big one, right?
It really gets you thinking about like the pros and cons
Yeah,
of social media.
definitely.
So it's not just about, basic vocabulary and grammar.
Right.
It's about thinking critically
Mm-hmm.
about these issues.
Yeah, and then being able to express yourself
Yeah.
using the language.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
They do a really great job of,
Yeah.
coming up with questions that will help people,
Practice
all
fluent.
different aspects of the language.
So it's not just about having these questions, though, right?
Right.
They actually give you techniques to use during these discussions
Yeah.
to make them more effective for language learning.
Yeah, so tell me more about that.
Okay, so one thing that they suggest is role playing.
Okay.
So, like, imagine, you're learning how to respond to a negative comment that someone left on your latest post.
Oh.
How would you handle that in English?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
It's very practical.
it is. It's like real life.
Yeah, but in a safe environment.
Right.
Where you can make mistakes and it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then another thing that they talk about is debates,
Oh, okay.
which is a really good way to practice your critical thinking skills.
Oh, yeah.
And, learn how to construct an argument
Yeah.
in English.
I love that.
Yeah,
Debates are always so much fun,
they are.
and they really get you thinking,
Absolutely.
even your feet.
Yeah.
And it's not just about speaking either. It's about understanding
Right.
the other person's perspective.
Different perspectives.
Yeah, and being able to
Articulate your own.
articulate your own. Yeah. And then the last one
Okay.
that they talked about was storytelling.
Oh, storytelling.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So it's kind of like, stories are inherently
Engaging.
engaging. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they help us connect with information
Yeah, I could say.
on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to remember stories better than just facts and figures.
Absolutely.
So if you can kind of connect,
the language.
the language, the vocabulary, the grammar to a story,
Yeah.
it's going to help you
Remember it.
remember it. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And it also makes it
More fun.
more fun and more engaging.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that they're using social media to explore all these different
Aspects of language.
language and communication.
Right. And communication. Yeah.
It's amazing how they've kind of turned it into this tool
Yeah.
for learning
Yeah. It's really right.
instead of
A distraction.
a distraction.
What I'm really curious about, though, is
Yeah.
how they address, like, the emotional side of language learning, because
Oh yeah,
that can be a really vulnerable
for sure.
experience.
Absolutely.
You're putting yourself out there,
Totally.
speaking a new language.
Yeah, you're putting yourself out there and it could be scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially online. So I'm curious, like, what their take on that is.
Yeah, so they definitely talk about that.
Okay.
Learning a language is not just, an intellectual journey.
Right.
It's an emotional one as well.
Yeah.
And they have some suggestions
Okay.
for making it a more supportive and encouraging environment.
I'm all ears.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, so one thing that they emphasize is celebrating the small wins.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, like instead of focusing on the mistakes you make,
Right.
celebrate every little bit of progress you make.
Yeah, because it's easy to get down on yourself.
Totally.
I mean,
Especially when you're learning something new.
right, and it can be.
It can be tough.
Yeah, so it's nice to have those little wins to celebrate.
Yeah, for sure.
But isn't there a risk, though, that by focusing on social media for language learning,
Yeah.
you might miss out on some of the other
Oh, yeah.
important skills,
Like grammar.
like grammar and writing?
Right.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and I thought about that too. But what's interesting is they actually see it as a way to enhance those skills.
Oh.
So it's not about replacing those things.
Right.
It's about using social media to make them better.
So, like, for example, if you're commenting on a post,
Yeah.
you still have to think about,
Right.
your
Your sentence structure
Yeah.
and all of that.
Exactly.
And
Ah.
by engaging in these discussions and reading all this content,
Right.
you're exposed to all this vocabulary
Yeah.
that you might not have seen otherwise.
So it's almost like you're learning passively.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Subconsciously even.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's more about using it mindfully
Right.
as a supplement to other things you're doing.
Right. Okay, cool. So the next one? The next suggestion.
Yeah.
So this one's all about empathy.
Oh, okay.
So they really
Nice.
emphasize that everyone makes mistakes
Mhm.
when you're learning a new language, and that's okay.
Yeah. Like it's part of the process.
It's gonna happen.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, you can't be afraid to mess up.
Yeah, it's how you learn.
Yeah.
And then the last one that they talk about is building a sense of community.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
So they've seen, firsthand how creating that sense of belonging can really boost
Confidence.
confidence and motivation.
Yeah, because I think if you are feeling like you're part of a community,
Yeah.
you're more likely to want to,
Put yourself out there.
put yourself out there and take risks.
Yeah, and not be as afraid to make those mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really all about, creating that safe space
Yeah.
where people feel comfortable.
It's interesting because when you think about traditional language learning,
Right.
it's very often you're just kind of by yourself.
In a classroom.
Yeah, with a textbook
Textbook.
or a workbook.
Yeah, and so this is like so different.
It is.
And it makes it so much more
Interactive.
interactive, yeah, and social.
Yeah, for sure. And there's actually studies that show that learning in a social context
Oh, wow.
can help with memory.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Because you're actively engaging with the material.
So you're not just like, passively
Right.
reading it.
Right.
You're actually having to think about it and talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
So I think that's a really important
Takeaway. Yeah.
takeaway from
From all of this.
yeah, from what they've done. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really about the connections.
Yeah.
It's not just about the language itself.
Yeah, it's about using the language to connect with other people.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this deep dive so interesting.
Yeah.
It really challenges us to think differently about how we learn
Yeah.
and how we connect.
Yeah, especially in like our digital world.
Absolutely, in this digital age.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's like they've kind of cracked the code
Yeah.
by using something that we're all already doing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's so accessible too.
It is.
Yeah.
You don't need anything fancy.
Yeah.
Just a smartphone
And a willingness to connect.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Yeah. So if we were to like sum all this up
Yeah.
for our listeners, like what are the key takeaways?
Okay, so I think the first one is that social media can be a really powerful tool for language learning,
Okay.
but you have to use it intentionally.
Right.
It's not just about scrolling.
Right. It's about being active.
Yeah, being active and using it with a purpose.
Yeah, with a goal in mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I like that. What's the second one?
The second one I think is that, social interaction really enhances learning.
Oh, yeah.
So whether it's, through online discussions or virtual language exchange partners or even just, commenting on posts,
Yeah.
it's really about connecting with others and
Yeah.
using that.
Right. To improve yourself.
And I think that also just makes it more fun.
way more fun.
Yeah.
Like who wants to sit there with a textbook all day?
No one.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely about making those connections and having fun. And then
Okay, so what about the last one?
the last one, embrace the emotional side of language learning.
Okay.
You know, it's okay to be frustrated.
Right.
It's okay to make mistakes.
It's all part of it.
It's all part of it.
Yeah.
It's how you learn.
You're going to have moments of self-doubt,
Absolutely.
but you're not alone.
You're not alone.
And that's what's so nice about, I think,
Having a community.
having that community.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. So we're kind of coming up on
Oh, yeah.
the end of this part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Um,
Where do we go from here?
what I'm really interested to learn more about is
Yeah.
how they address the ethical considerations.
Oh, yeah. That's important.
Because social media can be tricky,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Especially when we're talking about like, privacy
Yeah.
and being responsible.
Responsible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do they talk about that?
They do.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So they actually dedicate a whole section of
Yeah.
their podcast to talking about that.
Cool.
So,
I'm glad to hear that.
yeah, me too, because
It's
that's,
important.
it's really important. And they talk about
What kinds of things?
like being mindful of what you share,
Okay.
respecting people's privacy,
Mm-hmm.
and just being aware of how your words and actions can impact others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And it's almost like they're teaching digital citizenship
Oh, yeah.
alongside
I like that.
the language learning.
Yeah, because it is important to be a good digital citizen,
Yeah, it is.
especially these days.
Right. And it's not just about
It's not just about the language.
knowing the language.
Right. You have to know how to use it.
Yeah.
Responsibly.
Ethically
Yeah.
in a global community.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. So,
It's a good segue into the final part of our deep dive,
oh, perfect.
where we can talk about some practical tips
Okay.
and takeaways for our listeners.
I'm excited to dive into that.
Yeah.
All right, so welcome back to the show. We've been talking about how you can actually use social media to learn English.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, right?
It is. Like, I've learned so much just from preparing for this episode.
Me too.
So, for our listeners out there who are like, okay, how do I actually do this?
Yeah.
What would you say are like the first steps?
Well, first of all,
Okay.
don't be afraid to just use English on social media.
Okay.
Like, even if it's just a small comment,
Okay.
Like if you agree with something, just say like, I agree.
I agree.
Yeah. Or that's cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's something like that, just to kind of,
Dip your toes in.
dip your toes in the water, get comfortable with
Yeah, yeah.
it. And then I would say find accounts that share content that you're interested in, but in English.
Okay.
So it could be anything like cooking, travel, music,
Yeah.
whatever you like.
Whatever your hobbies are. Yeah.
Like I follow so many British baking shows,
Yeah.
and my vocabulary for pastries has increased dramatic.
They're already doing it.
Yeah.
See?
It's like sneaky learning.
It is. You're learning without even realizing it.
Yeah. And it's fun.
Exactly. It should be fun.
Yeah. Okay, so what else?
All right. So another thing is, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's gonna happen.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Everyone makes mistakes,
Yeah.
especially when you're learning something new.
Yeah, and I think especially with languages, too, because it can feel
Vulnerable.
vulnerable. Yeah.
You're putting yourself out there.
Yeah, and you're like worried about what people are going to think.
Yeah. And you don't want to sound stupid, but you know what?
Yeah.
The best way to learn is to make mistakes.
Yeah, and the more mistakes you make, the
Yeah.
more you learn.
So don't be afraid to put yourself out there and make those mistakes.
It's better than not saying anything at all.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then another tip is to actively participate in discussions. Okay. So like actually comment on things.
Yeah. Comment on things, respond to people, ask questions, start your own conversations.
Oh, wow. Like really jump in.
Yeah, jump in.
Yeah.
And I know that can be kind of scary at first.
Yeah. Nerve-wracking.
Nerve-wracking, yeah.
But it's easier, right?
It gets easier with practice, and the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll
Yeah.
become. And what's really nice is that most people are really supportive,
Oh,
especially in online learning communities.
yeah. Yeah. Everybody's kind of in the same boat.
Everyone's in the same boat, and they're all there to help each other.
Yeah. And that goes back to like what we were talking about with Sam and Kirk.
Yeah, that sense of community.
Yeah. Like that's so important.
It's super
I
important.
have that.
So yeah, find those communities.
Yeah. And feel supported.
And feel
Well, here-
supported. Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah. Ask for help.
Ask for help.
Reach out.
Reach out. Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up here,
Yeah.
I feel like the big takeaway is really like, don't underestimate the power of social media for language learning.
Yeah. For
It's
sure.
not going to, magically make you fluent.
Right. It's not a magic solution.
Yeah, it's not like a magic pill, but
It's a really great tool
yeah.
that you can use to supplement all the other things that you're doing.
Yeah, it's all about being proactive and intentional.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And most importantly, have fun.
Yes. Have fun with it.
Yeah, because if you're not having fun,
It's not going to work.
it's not going to work. Yeah, and you're not going to want to keep doing it.
Exactly. And, maybe you'll even make some new friends along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's the best part.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Okay.
We hope you enjoyed it and learned something new
I hope so.
about how you can use social media to learn English.
Yeah. It's been fun.
It's been really fun talking about this.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Until next time.
Until next time, keep those conversations flowing.
Keep learning.
Keep learning.
Happy learning, everyone.
That's it for us. We'll see you next time.